Hi, I jumped the gun there a little bit. Hi, my name is Miguel A. I'm going to share our serverless journey and our Nuxt journey and how it sped up our time to market. So a little bit our serverless journey and who we are. Veritol is a startup in the tolling and transportation industry. We believe in bringing innovation to the industry by focusing on mobile, crowdsourced, and cloud-based technologies. We're also on a social mission. We want to bring mobility to anyone, and we're doing this by allowing them opportunities to work off their tolls and fares. So in order to achieve our goals to bring innovation and also to achieve our social mission, we wanted to have a technology that is also innovative. That's how we landed on serverless technologies. This technology allows us to rapidly deploy our apps and our infrastructure, also have lower infrastructure, less maintenance throughout the project lifecycle, and we are also able to achieve lower costs. So you may be wondering, what is serverless? Serverless is a technology where you do not need a dedicated server or where you can leverage on-demand services. And you may be wondering, well, how can you have a technology without a server? And I do admit there must be a server somewhere in the technology stack. But the point is, we don't have to configure it, we don't have to provision it, we don't have to maintain it. Most of the time, all we really need to do is upload our code or upload a configuration, and that technology is available to us, and it functions the way that we want it to. So it does simplify a lot of the development and infrastructure that we see in traditional server-based technologies. So just to give you an idea of what a serverless design and architecture looks like, here's a paradigm, a design pattern that we typically follow on Amazon Web Services. This is, let's suppose this is a website and a mobile app that we're trying to deploy and maintain. For our website, we're going to use three major services. We're going to use Content Delivery Network, or CDN, some kind of web hosting or object storage capability, and a domain name server, DNS. So this uses the Route 53, CloudFront, and S3 services on AWS. So let's walk through that. When a website wants to visit an address, let's say autotoll.io, that's one of our domains, Route 53 will resolve that address to an IP. That IP gets sent to CloudFront, which will do the CDN. If there's the content already cached, it will return that cached content back to the web browser. If it's not already cached, it will then go to the S3 object storage to retrieve the web content and then serve it back to the web browser. Now, the website may need a backend, and the mobile app definitely needs a backend. We can also do this serverless. We can leverage API management, serverless functions, and serverless databases to achieve this. So the AWS services that we use are API Gateway, Lambda, and DynamoDB. So when the website or the mobile app needs to get data from the backend, it would make an API call to one of the endpoints registered with the API Gateway. That API Gateway will then forward the event to a Lambda function. The Lambda function will take that event and perform the appropriate action, which may include reading and writing to a DynamoDB table. If it needs to respond back with data, it'll send the data back in the response. The API Gateway then sends the response back to the website or mobile app. And that's how the data is received by those two platforms. So hopefully this gives you an idea of what serverless looks like in the cloud. So now I want to share a little bit about our Nuxt journey and why we went with Nuxt. One of our platforms was originally implemented in Angular. It served its purpose. We were able to go to market with that on an initial version. But we wanted to update the platform to something more modern, something that would be faster and easier to deploy with. At the time, we were evaluating between React and Vue. So after some research and analysis, we determined that Vue would be better suited for our long-term roadmap. We felt that the Vue code was easier to read, and also the state management was also easier to understand. So the learning curve would be lower. So as we chose Vue and we're deciding how to develop quickly with it, we learned about Nuxt, and we were really impressed with what we found after researching and studying it and doing some experimentation. One of the biggest things that stood out for us is the way components are designed into the Nuxt framework. Adding a component to the application, it's very simple. You create a single file component or a Vue file in the components directory, and it's made available to the app right away. That's awesome. What was also interesting to learn was that pages themselves, or views, are components themselves. So when you create a Vue file in the pages directory, we now have a page that's already loaded into the application. Having both components and pages following the same component structure allows us to have a similar development approach, and there's less context switching going back and forth. That makes development so much faster and easier. So extending on pages, the way the Nuxt adds them is through dynamic routing, which is amazing. Normally, you would have to register your components and your pages into the Vue configuration, but that's all handled very easily with Nuxt. So once we put the Vue file into the pages directory, the route is instantly there, and you can also configure the file name to be a slug, so you can now have dynamic routes. So that's awesome. So as we mentioned, we do serverless development, and we were impressed with the built-in single-page application and static site generation that Nuxt provides. It compresses and makes the files and manifests really small, really efficient, and it works really well with the serverless architecture that I shared previously. We're a TypeScript company. We use TypeScript wherever we can, and we were glad to see that TypeScript is natively supported with Nuxt. Another thing that sold us was the Nuxt modules. There's so many modules there that come right out of the box and really simplified our development. We had, as part of our research, we landed on Vuetify for Vue front-end development. That we felt that framework really helped with our use cases and provided nice UX, user experience right out of the box. And Vuetify is one of the options that shows up when you're first creating your Nuxt app. There's other things other modules that we needed that fit well within our desired design pattern. We needed Axios to allow the serverless website to do API calls to the serverless backend. It has progressive web app support. The content module is awesome. One thing that we want to do is to help the users find answers what they need. So what we decided to do was create a help route and our developers would put markdown files in the help directory in the source code. So when the application is compiled and the user needs help, they could just navigate to the help section, and all these markdown files are automatically converted to HTML Vue-friendly pages. That's amazing, and there's so many more. Lastly, I want to touch upon the lifecycle events. So Vue has its own lifecycle events, but Nuxt added some on top of those, which really help with how we wanted to manage route and modify routes. So we could use the middleware and the before mount lifecycle events, for example, to ensure that when a user goes to a specific page that we can get the appropriate data, and the validate lifecycle event as well, so we can return an error if, let's say, a robot's trying to enumerate pages, or they're providing the wrong ID. So that was a lot, and just the takeaway is Nuxt is awesome. It really helped our development. So you're probably wondering, what is it that we built with Nuxt? So at the time we were exploring to use Vue and Nuxt going forward, there was a new project that leadership was considering. So when they decided to go ahead with this new project, we decided to start our Vue experience right away with this. So here is a redacted version of the project that we worked on to remove some sensitive information. So what this new project was using is, we do verified tolling, and one of the data inputs that we use to verify tolling is GPS data and trips. So we can ensure that customers are being billed accurately for their trips. So this is what we built. This is the dashboard. You may be wondering why it took 2 months. In addition to approving that Nuxt would be our development framework going forward, there was a backend framework that we were also going to prove out during this project as well. So we were doing Nuxt learning and backend learning at the same time. We recently did a project where we had a well-known, understood backend framework already, and we were able to create this new project in less than 60 hours, both front end with Nuxt and the already well-established backend framework. So our experience hopefully shows that with Nuxt, you can develop products, web-based apps really quickly and make them look really nicely. I do want to share some challenges that we encountered. So there are two that really stood out to us, and we had to get creative during our learning. When we put secrets in the environment file, on the server side, that's pretty well protected. It's loaded into the runtime configuration in the environment variables. And it's really difficult for a client to break into that. But with the serverless version, the static site generation, any secrets that are defined in the environment file have to get packaged. Otherwise, the application won't have access to those. So they get stored into a manifest file. And as you see here in the screenshot, the secret key is exposed in plain text. So we had to find a way to get around this because we did not want to expose our secrets to the world. Anyone that's willing could find it. So what we decided to do is to use our serverless backend and hide the secrets behind our APIs. It's similar to having it on the server version, but we had to adopt that concept with the serverless counterpart. Another one is the SAML and OpenID Connect support. There's this really awesome module called the Nuxt Auth module that has built-in authentication for social providers, OAuth 2. But at the time that we were exploring this, that SAML and OpenID Connect were not supported. So we had to find a way to allow single sign-on for our enterprise and other enterprises to access our web app. In the end, we went with a middleware approach to accept the SAML auth callbacks. It allowed, given the middleware lifecycle event is in the entire spectrum of lifecycle events, it allowed for to process the callback, validate that it's a valid login, and it renders really nicely in the UI, so there's no odd-looking redirect screen flashing behaviors. I do want to note that OpenID Connect hopefully should be there soon. There's an open PR that looks like it's ready to be merged. So hopefully we've shared some of the benefits that you can experience with Nuxt development and some of the challenges you might encounter when doing the serverless static site generation approach. So what's next for us? We're looking to grow our development team. We want to expand our user base as well. We want to be able to provide mobility solutions to anyone that needs to be able to get from point A to point B, let's say for a greater job opportunity. And we're sharing our lessons learned with Serverless and Nuxt with our clients and stakeholders and anyone interested in going exploring that option. And we're excited to see what Nuxt 3 has and how we can start using that in our next versions of our applications and platforms. So hopefully you found this presentation useful. Please get in touch. I'd love to hear from you, answer any questions, and talk serverless and Nuxt. You can contact me via email or LinkedIn, and I do write blogs. I'm a published author, and you can check out my blog page as well. Thank you so much and for having me here.